Hit it. Oh, how you feel, brother?
Feeling good.
You feel good?
Feeling good. It's grooving.
Play so much bone, brother. How you feel, man?
I feel all right.
I call your name. I don't want no people to know you're in here. How you feel, fella? Hey, yeah. Sure getting down. We gotta take you higher. Ow. All right. You wanna do it again? You wanna do it again, huh?
Yeah, let's go on back.
We gotta take you higher.
Power Lunch with Sharita J.
If we could get more people to collaborate with our nonprofit.
Hi,
we
this
could
is
be bringing a
Sharita,
lot more
and this
programs
is
back to our
Drive Time with
schools,
Sharita, actually.
Because there's grants.
Good evening. I'm so glad that you're joining me today. This is actually a show that I did a couple of weeks ago with my dear friend, and he is a renowned photojournalist, Haywood Galbraith. That show was about not only photographers, but also about his journey. Haywood was the only African-American photojournalist on the trial of the century, which is the O.J. Simpson trial. So on part one, and we are going to recap, but we were talking about what was it like to be that singular African-American photojournalist on a trial that also was built around, or at least was existing in the whole media and what was going on. There was just that elephant in the room about also racism. And so he talked about that. He shared some pictures that many people had not seen before. But also Haywood is more than a photojournalist. He is also an advocate for youth, and he makes sure that he reaches out to those individuals that need to just be exposed to something that they had not been exposed to before. So he is helping young people to blossom into their photography genius. He has a nonprofit called Minority Photojournalism Institute, so we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about grants today. If you're a photographer or know anyone that's a photographer and you're looking for grants, you want to stay tuned in because we're going to be talking about funding that can fund your passion, which is photography. So there's a lot we're going to cover today. I keep being on the verge of coughing. I'm trying to get over this flu. So again, I want to thank you for being with me this evening with Drive Time with Sharita J. and my very special guest, Mr. Haywood Galbraith. So we have a lot to talk about. So I'm going to just jump right in and thank you, Haywood, for being with me today.
Thank you for inviting me back.
Yes,
it's good to be
yes. I want to recap a little bit about part one of the show. We had talked about so much. We didn't get to the part about your youth and the nonprofit, so we're going to make sure that we do that today. But I want to go back, kind of rewind back a little bit and give us a feeling of what it was like to be part of that history, which was the O.J. Simpson trial, and we're in the 20-year anniversary of that. So tell me about that.
I got a question first. So my shoulders drooping. I want to make sure I'm sitting square up in my chair.
You are
Chest
sitting
stuck
square
out,
up.
Okay.
Sitting square up, looking fine. Ladies, this man, if he's looking fine on the camera, he's even more fine in person. Of course, he tries to be a little humble, but...
Am I blushing? I need all the color I can get if I'm blushing.
Haywood,
Okay.
tell us what it was like to be in that moment of the trial.
It was very difficult almost every day. It really was very difficult. You know that elephant in the room that everybody talks about? No, that doesn't talk about.
Yeah.
That elephant in the room of racism, every day I had to deal with it. I had to deal with it from my colleagues in media. I had to deal with it from certain court personnel, certain people in the prosecution's office, certain people in the sheriff's department. And it was a very difficult journey. As a matter of fact, when the trial was finally over, I came out, and unbeknownst to myself until I came out of it, I went into a depression. I think I said last week, I didn't hate Caucasian people. I hated the way of white people because of what they had done to me.
Yes.
And my colleagues in media, photojournalists, I stopped talking to them for about 14 years. I just wouldn't have anything to do with them. There were events, I would go to events, and I guess they could feel the anger within me because they just kind of parted from me. I remember I went to the Super Bowl down in San Diego, and a friend of mine that was a photographer who shot for the NFL, he was on one side, he was on the side of the field where the press box is, and he said he was watching me, and I was on the other side of the field. And he said he watched me, and he watched me start to walk across the field. And he says, as I walked, the people, and it was hundreds of people on the field. It was before the game and the
Right,
media
right.
and everybody. He says, as I started to walk across the field, the people parted like the Red Sea as I was walking.
Was it because of the mannerism you were walking, or what?
It probably had to do with my mannerisms and the look on my face because, like I said, I just had this great disdain for people who worked for white-owned media because being a journalist myself and being a photojournalist and having been around them all these years, because I've been a journalist for 30 years, I don't know their hearts per se, but I know where their heart is quite often when it comes to dealing with people of color.
Well, speaking of the trial, we have here the book. It's called I Want to Tell You by O.J. Simpson. But the reason why I have this book is because Haywood Galbraith took this historic shot while the trial was going on, and it ended up being on the cover of this book, the back cover.
The back cover.
Tell us, let's recap how this picture ended up being on the cover, on the
Okay.
back cover.
About 2.5 weeks before we went to the break for Christmas, Johnny Cochran came to me one day, OJ's lead attorney, Johnny Cochran. And before the trial started, Johnny Cochran and I had a working relationship. He'd often call me to shoot stuff for him. He came to me, he said, Haywood, I need you to gather up a bunch of pictures that you have taken so far during the preliminary hearings. And I want you to bring them to my office. And that's all he said. So I go and I gather up a bunch of images that I've taken. I go to his office. I go in his office and I hand him the images. He looks at the images and he says, okay. He said, and then he pulls out a pad and he starts writing down an address. And he says, nobody knows this, but OJ is getting ready to do a book. And so I want your image used for the book, and some other people want your images used for the book cover. I said, okay. And so he writes out this address and he says, it's in the valley and you need to go to the valley to this address. And he looks at me and then he says, you don't know anything, right? I'm like, no,
I know nothing.
I don't know anything. And so I go to the valley. And as I'm driving, I'm like, I just got the biggest scoop of the trial so far, and I got to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
And so I go on to the valley, and I go to the address where he said go to.
Well, before you go there, though, this was while the trial was going on.
While the trial was going, it was
How
during
long?
the preliminary hearings.
During the preliminary,
Around
okay.
December, because the
Okay.
book came out after the first of the year. It was in December.
Okay.
Just before we went to the break for Christmas, before the trial started.
Okay.
So I go to the valley and I go to this house and this guy opens the door who looked like the Penguin from the Batman movies. And I said, I'm here, I got the photos, come on in. And so I go in, he starts looking at the photos and he asked me a question. He said, you know so-and-so? I'm like, I don't know so-and-so. He said, I thought you was on the inside. You're not really on the inside, are you? And I just kind of look at him. And so he keeps looking at the photos. And because Johnny had told me the name of the book I want to tell you, I know I had the perfect image for it.
You knew it.
And so the guy kept on talking. I kept talking to him. He kept going through the phone. I don't like anything. I don't see anything I like. And so I said to him, well, I got one more image. But I don't
Which
think
is
you'll
this?
like it. And so he said, let me see it. I'm like, I'm not sure. I really don't think you'll like it, but hey. So I pulled it out and I handed it to him. He looks at it and he goes like, this is it. This will work. This will work right here. I'm like, no, I'm not quite sure that it'll work for you, man. Really. It's
That
like,
reverse psychology.
and so he said, no, this is what I want right here. Go get me the negative. I need the negative. I'm like, okay, but you sure about that? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So I get the pictures and I go back to my car and I get in the car and I go like, yes. I'm like, you little arrogant so-and-so, you.
Yeah.
I pulled a quick one on you because I knew that was perfect image because Johnny had told me the book was I Want to Tell You, and that's what, OJ is turning and looking at him. Now, also, as we discussed, excuse me, that is my famous E.F. Hutton photo, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it goes off the commercials when E.F. Hutton was in business. They had these commercials that when somebody started talking,
Everybody listens
everybody
and leans
listens.
in.
And the one who really made that, you would have had to see it. The one who really makes that is Bob Shapiro. because he was sitting straight up, and when O.J. turned to Johnny and started talking, Bob leaned in to hear what he said, and as a matter of fact, as I said last week, when I fired the camera, I was saying under my breath, E.F. Hutton.
Yeah.
E.F. Hutton.
Yeah. Well, while we're talking about the book, and please, your friend that won the last book,
Yes, my relative.
I've got like 4 things in my trunk that I was needing to hand over for them to take to the post office. So you guys, I'm sorry, they have not been sent yet. So we will make sure that they're sent. But we have for our callers, you will go into the drawing if you would like to get a copy of this book. And this is a collector's item because it will be the only few that are signed by the photographer of this world-famous picture, Mr. Haywood Galbraith. So if you would like to be in the drawing for that, make sure that you're one of our callers today. That's 323-965-1600. 323-965-1600, and we will add you to the magic bowl of being able to win the book. Okay, Haywood.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, during the trial, again, there were photographers that were selected to go to Rockingham and Bundy, and it ended up that you were selected out of how many photographers?
23.
23.
23.
And so
You know,
that went well for you, but in some ways it did not go well.
It did not go well. You know, of course, the people who worked in the mainstream media always was one step ahead in finding out certain information. So they found out before I did that the court itself, the prosecutor's office and the court had decided, the judges had decided that only one person from each media group, there was only one television cameraman that was going. There was only one radio reporter that was going in the pool. There was only one writer that was going for the newspapers. And there was going to only be, excuse me, one still photographer. And we had 3 still photographers in the courtroom every day, but they decided that it was only going to be one. So they found this out, and they came to court, and of course, being the only black photographer in there every day, they came in, and this white photographer sits beside me, and he looks at me and with this little smirk on his face, and he said, and I'm like, what are you smirking about? And he says, you know, we just found out that they're only going to take one photographer to Bundy and Rockingham. I'm like, okay. And they're going to draw the names out of a hat. And there's 22 of us, and there's only one of you. And then he proceeded to point toward the judge, and he said, you see Judge Ito up there? Judge Ito can't help you with this. And you see your little friend Johnny standing up there? Johnny can't help you with this because this is what the court decided.
Well, what led to him? Now, because if it was only going to be one, then there was also going to be another 20 that didn't go either. So
Correct.
why just say that to you?
Well, the bottom line is that I had advocated for the black press of America, of America to be in the courtroom. And mainstream media, and let me explain again who mainstream media is. Mainstream media is media organizations that are owned by white corporations and white Americans. That's mainstream media. And mainstream media...
It just seems so unbelievable that it's still classified in this way as we look at 2014. Of course, we all know that racism is still alive, but I guess with looking at the entertainment industry, the media, we never think of it also existing there. At least I don't.
Well, you know, that's the reason why I got into the business in the first place, because the voice of God spoke to me and said that you see this medium, when it was in reference to something that I had seen on television in a news program. You know, you see this medium, this is the medium that is going to be used in years to come for people to determine what they think about people. And as the years have gone by, and when that voice spoke to me, I decided I wanted to become a photojournalist to document my people's history more truthfully and correctly, along with everybody else's. And as the years have gone by, I've seen that it is. You know, they say image isn't everything, but image is a whole lot in America. And if you pay close attention, and this is something I want the listeners to pay attention to from this day forward. I want you to pay attention when it comes to images in newspapers, magazines, and television, that when they're talking about something negative, it can be a part of the country where there's very few people of color live. But if they're talking about something negative, you're going to always see a person of color or several people of color in that news clip or in those images, you can be in Idaho and something negative happened, and you know it's like only 2 black people in Idaho. When they show that photo, it's going to be one of those black people in that photo, if not both of them. Here's what's going on. It's a subliminal thing.
Yes.
Subliminally, what you are being conditioned to is that whenever anything negative is taking place, black people and other people of color are going to be involved with it somewhere.
Wow.
And so when
Hayward?
you look at black people and other people of color, subliminally you think
just
they
think-
are bad people.
Wow.
And it goes down the board. It also has a major part to do with economics in this country. Because when it comes to economics, who you going to deal with? Somebody that you think is bad or somebody that you think is good? It's a subliminal thing. It's so subtle.
That covers
how it's
across
done.
a whole lot that we
It
don't even
goes
think about.
through a whole lot of stuff.
Wow.
The imagery that we see and the
Okay.
people that make our images. If you follow me on Facebook, quite often you hear me talking about the fact somebody other than white Americans, white photojournalists, need to be making the images that we see of people of color, because there is a great disconnect with the people in the news business who cover people of color. Because they don't live in our communities. They don't see us as viable individuals per se. They see us as a means to an end, and that means to an end is making money.
Okay, so then tell me this. How can we do a better job, even with our black media? How can we do a better job in changing how those subliminal messages are even put out there?
We have to get out there, even in our black media. We have to get out there and we have to demand that we get to participate in everything that is. One of the things that I say about our black media, the world has evolved. Anybody in black media that's listening, I want you to pay close attention. The world has evolved. We have a job to highlight what goes on in the black community, especially what is positive, but we live in America. Everything that takes place in America is about us. I don't care if it's a Caucasian white person in Beverly Hills or wherever. It's about us. We are Americans. We need to cover everything that
Everything.
is. Because one of the things
Instead
that is
of just
happening with
black-
black media, we are
yes.
losing the young people
Yes.
because we have become so diverse. They want to see other people. They want to know what other people are doing. Yes, still highlight what we do.
But
we
highlight
need to reach
everything.
out about everything. Because
Yes.
if you're not there when things are taking place, then you really don't know what's going on. When they call a meeting with all their big wigs,
Yes.
if you don't think it's important to be there and you don't go, well, after that meeting is over with, in a few weeks or a few months, something happens that changes your life, then there's a problem there
Yeah.
because you wasn't there to document what was going on and to let the people know what they were up to and what they were going to do. So we need to reach out. Yes, our black media still highlight our black people, the positive things we do, and to be fair about it. Because when the Great Spirit told me it was my job to go out and document my people more truthfully, He also told me it is not your job to go out and make white folks look bad and not tell the truth and document their
Yeah.
lives truthfully as
It should
well.
be non-biased.
Be non-biased
You know what?
in what you
One
do.
of the things, speaking of reporting and reporting the positive, it just kills me that so many African Americans are not aware that Samuel L. Jackson is the highest paid actor of all time, that he is actually in the Guinness Book of Records. Why isn't that reported? Why don't we have that not only, I don't know that it's been posted in anywhere across the media, and that happened in what, almost 2 years ago?
Because we really don't go and do our research the way we should do. Quite often we depend on mainstream media to put the information out there, and then we pick it up
Okay.
and run with it somehow. It's so interesting for a people, and I'm talking about black people, to talk about they so independent, and we are so who we are. For people to always be talking about that, you're doing an awful lot of running behind your white brothers and sisters in America. You're doing a lot of emulating them and what you do and when you decide to do it and how you decide to do
Yeah,
it. For
yeah.
somebody to be so independent and saying that we are this.
Well, now tell me this. If someone wants to reach you, what is the best way for them to reach out to you so they can stay up on what you're doing? Because you have a book coming out. You're without a doubt going to be doing a documentary. They want to keep up with you. Where do
I
they
don't
go?
know. After what I just said about my people, I might not want them reaching me. Nah. But they can reach me. I'm on Facebook, Haywood Golden Eagle Galbraith. That goes to the other part of my makeup, which is Native American.
So a little slower. Haywood
Golden
Eagle
Galbraith.
And Galbraith is Galbreath.
EATH, not
Haywood.
ITH, ATH.
And that's HAYWOOD.
Yes.
So Haywood Golden Eagle Galbraith. And that's on Facebook.
I also
Okay.
have a website where I'm talking about my journey in life. It's a journey based on faith, hope, and love, and overcoming all sorts of obstacles. The website is the HG Story,
Okay.
which stands for the
HG
Haywood
Story.
Galbraith Story.
.org.com.
.org.
Okay. So
There- and
the
if you-
hgstory.org.
If you want to see on Facebook about my OJ documentary that I'm working on, if you go to Haywood the Golden Eagle Galbraith, you can find out because it's a long, stretched out name. It's actually the O.J. Simpson double murder trial through the lens of a black press photographer.
Okay. Okay. And that's on your Facebook.
That's on Facebook as well.
Okay. Now, I just want to say that when we're talking about the 20-year anniversary of this trial, I don't want to negate the fact that, yes, families were hurt through this. Yes, when people die, there's also a lot of hurt, and it continues on. And so we understand that. We're not trying to glorify anything. Even when I'm talking about the book, it's not about glorifying OJ. It is about acknowledging you for the work that you have done. I understand, and we all understand that even the families that went through this whole trial, all the families, that there was a lot of hurt and anger involved. So it's not about that. I just wanted to present you on the show because though all the other families were highlighted, we didn't hear the stories of individuals that were involved with the case from a whole nother side that we didn't even think about. So Haywood, in your daily trials and tribulations during the trial, there was an incident with OJ's mother, and when you took a picture of
Yes.
her, and you talked about that the last time. But in case someone missed that, I think that was just a cute moment.
It was one of those cute moments. It was at the beginning of the trial. OJ's mother was in a wheelchair at that point, and she came every day, just like his two sisters, and one of his sister's husbands came every day, never missed a day. And it was been the beginning when I think Chris had started doing his opening about what the case was going to be about. So I'm in the back of the room shooting, and I'm always looking around the room to see if there's an interesting shot. And I look to my left, which is where the family sat, and I think I had focused on the family for some reason. And all of a sudden, OJ's mother, she turned, and she looked into the camera, and she started laughing, and her hand was at her ear. And so we went to a break. As a matter of fact, when we went to a break, I was curious because I wanted to get the information to go with the cut line that I was going to put on the photo. We went outside, and I walked up to her, and I leaned over, and I said, "Mother Simpson, what are you laughing about?"
And I don't know if they can see this, but it's this picture here.
No, actually, that's
not the one?
That's not the one, but that's one of those that I caught with her looking at me.
With her looking at you?
With looking at me.
Okay.
Her daughter, Carmelita, who is now passed away, she looked at me and said, "Mother can't hear you." I'm like, "Huh?" She said, "Chris Darden was getting on Mother's case, not Mother's case, but getting on Mother's nerves, talking. She got tired of listening to him. And so she decided to turn her hearing aid down where she couldn't hear him."
Okay.
And so that's what she's doing. When she turned toward me and started laughing, she's turning her hearing aid down. As a matter of fact, her daughter you can see on the picture is turned looking at her, and you can see her daughter enough that there is laughter in her daughter's face. And so that was very cute. It was like she's tired of listening to him, so she turns her hearing aid down.
Yeah. Well, you know, Haywood, you were honored with the, what was it, the Golden Eagle? No, the Ford. It was the Ford something award. Let me go back. What is that
Ford
award?
Foundation Unsung Award, Unsung Hero Award.
Okay, and that was June 2013.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Ford Foundation, which is a part of Ford, they go into communities and they give awards to people who are doing work in the communities in different areas. In my particular area was in the area of education. My foundation, Minority Photojournalism Institute, we teach young kids of color photography, photojournalism, and broadcasting. We have a little motto, a little saying, if you want to shoot somebody, pick up a camera.
Okay, that's cute.
Yes, and so my publicist nominated me for the award, and I got this, I was riding home one afternoon, I got this phone call from Detroit, and the person on the other end said, hey, we just want to inform you that you have won the award, and I was very grateful.
Well, that's a good
to
thing.
get an award for
All
working
right
with
now.
kids. Because working with the youth is part of a covenant that I made with the Great Spirit God on the railroad track 34 years ago when I prayed to him.
But you love youth anyway. You have kids that you call your kids that you just have taken under your wing even before you started the nonprofit.
Yes.
So that's just in you.
Let me say something about that. That goes to the issue that it takes a village. And I remember another thing that my grandmother used to say, if you're going to love the mother, you got to love the kids.
Okay.
And so that's one of the things that was instilled in me, and that's what I try to do.
We've got to take a station break because our sponsor, which is the wonderful Pit Bull, has a message for us. So we'll be right back at you.
Hey, are you tired of those same old energy drinks with bad taste? Make a switch to Pit Bull Energy Drink with a guaranteed no aftertaste. Pit Bull offers more energy with ginseng and vitamins B6 and B12. With a ginger ale lemon lime flavor, Pit Bull meets the consumer's demand for better tasting and healthier energy products with a guaranteed no aftertaste. Make a switch to Pit Bull Energy Drink. Pit Bull offers more energy with ginseng and vitamins B6 and B12. With a ginger ale lemon lime flavor, Pit Bull meets the consumer's demand for better tasting and healthier energy products. For more information on Pit Bull energy drinks, bars, and mixes, visit their website at hiphopbev.com. That's hiphopbev.com. Online orders available at hiphopbev.com.
I'm going to have a chicken and waffle. Yes. Well, we're very proud of you. Thanks for doing that. Proud of you. Are you working hard in school? Okay, man. I'm counting on you. How's it going, guys? Good. What's your name? Nice to see you, Annabelle. What's your name? How are you, sir? Good to see you. Absolutely. How are you, my friend? What? Hello. How are you?
Jay, and my very special guest, Mr. Haywood Galbraith, who is a very dear friend, but he is also a world-renowned photojournalist. He was the only African-American photojournalist on the trial of the century, which was the O.J. Simpson trial. So he's sharing with us his trials and tribulations, but also his wonderful things that he's doing with youth and photography. Following that, we're also going to be talking about grants for photography. So just now, when we were on break, Haywood, there was a commercial about our president, and he was at our sponsor's facility, which is Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. Speaking of presidents, you have served how many presidents as far as photography and what you do?
As a photojournalist, I'm the only black photojournalist in America that has worked for the black press to be with 5 presidents of the United States of America.
That deserves a clap in itself.
Yes, I started with Ronald Reagan in Miami, and actually was a photographer for a day with President Ronald Reagan. It's so funny. I was working with another photographer, and the photographer wanted to take a photo with him, and so I took the photo with him. But I didn't think it was appropriate because he said, "Go up there and take one." I'm like, "No, I don't want to do that."
Yeah.
And then the president motioned for me to come on. I'm like, "Nah." And then his staff said, "No, take the picture with him. He would love for you to do it." So he motioned again. I walked up there, and at the time I was working on the television show Miami Vice. So we thought we were larger than anything in this country because our show.
Well, as far as I was concerned, man, because Miami Vice was the show.
Because our show was the bomb. So we were larger than presidents. You know, the president's asking the stars to come to the White House and stuff. And so it's like I was so full of the fact that I was on Miami Vice. Like, who's this dude, the president? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to honor him by going up and taking a photo with him. So the Secret Service was standing up there, and anybody who knows me knows I can be mischievous. So I said, I know what I'm going to do. So I go up and I get beside the president, and I'm looking at him and I'm talking to him. And just before we take the photo, I said, I know the Secret Service will not shoot me today. And what I did was I put my hand around his waist and I pulled him over to me. And the Secret Service, you could see them, they all just kind of moved a little bit. And I was laughing because I said, they do not want it's an election year.
Yeah.
They don't want no incident.
Yeah.
And so we took the picture, and so I have the photo with me and the president. And like I said, one of the greatest things is the president of the United States. It was twice. First, Vice President Bush asked me to take a photo with him, and I turned him down. And then the president, I turned him down, but I went ahead and took it. The second president I was with was President George Bush. The third was Bill Clinton. The fourth was President George Bush, the son, and the fifth was President Obama. And with Clinton, I was a photographer for a day with Clinton. I was a photographer half a day with President Obama, and I also served when he was running the first time as one of his photographers in California. I have a letter from him that he wrote, and I put a composite together of photos that I had taken of him and took him to one of the events where I was working, and he signed the photo, and I actually have that signed photo.
Maybe you want to say, who is it?
And I took a photo of him signing it, so people say I can show people that's not a fake signature.
Okay. Well, now speaking of president, you are the president of your nonprofit.
President of my nonprofit.
Tell us about the Photojournalism Institute.
Minority Photojournalism Institute was started actually 10 years ago this year, and Miss Sharita Herring did all the work and put it together, KI Foundation.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that she did. And I started because I saw a need. As I said, I've been a photojournalist for 30 years, and I've covered some of the biggest events in this country. And one of the things that I always noticed, most especially when it came to sports, is that you would see these young white kids with their parents, and they would start out, they would just be with their parents out there covering events. Now, the most interesting thing about that is they're always telling me that they don't have no room for us to come and cover the events, and that you can't bring anybody because it's such a professional thing that you can't have youngsters and stuff. But you would see these young white kids coming with their parents that were either reporters or photographers, and they would start out just walking around with them, like covering a football game, a pro football game or a college football game. The kids would be walking around with them. Then the next year they'd show up, they'd be holding their parents' cameras. They be walking around with the cameras, and they have their little badge where
They had a press badge.
they had their little press pass. And
Wow.
so I just stood there and I watched them for like 15 years do this, and I'm like, and I always remember they say we can't do this, but they're doing this, and so it would keep going and going, and eventually the kids would wind up shooting images. And what happens with that is this: when you go to school and you want to get on your high school newspaper, who are they going to put on the high school newspaper to do the reporting or
Except
to shoot
the ones
pictures?
that says they were already at those games and shot and
when they look at
Sure.
when they ask you, well, what you got to show us that shows you can do it, who you think they're gonna pick? They're gonna pick the kid that's showing pictures of their families and stuff, or they're gonna pick the kid who's showing pictures of being at major sporting events
Sure.
and major entertainment events
Sure.
of pictures that they've taken of those people.
okay.
And like I said, 9.9% of the time, it's always white kids. So in 2004, I decided to start Minority Photojournalism Institute to teach young kids of color photography, because
Excuse me.
photography is a great profession to be in just as a photographer.
Sure.
As a hobby and
And
as
we
a
all
profession.
have cameras in our hand,
Yes.
but we don't have the skills that you have. So you're
I won't
teaching
say
them
anything
something
about
else.
that.
Yeah,
and
you're
so
teaching them
I
something
decided
else.
to teach them photojournalism also to level the playing field.
Yes.
Give them the opportunity to go out and cover these events as well, so that when they go to their high school newspapers or their college or go to college, they will have the skills as well as the images for the professors to look at and say, yes, I want this person.
Okay. Okay. Well, now, I want to just give a little bit of information on some grants that are available for photography. Now, there's even some grants for summer programs. So if they, let's see, we can go to, if we look at, there's the Summer Youth Mini Grants. And anyone that may want to see that, you can go to www.hafoundation.org. And what it is their offer is the Humboldt Area Foundation, and they're giving mini grants for, they say, we recognize that organizations offering summer programs for children and youth are integral to providing those opportunities. So they're wanting young people that are interested in photography to be going to those camps and being able to shoot what's going on at the camps. So they say each year small grants are awarded to expand and enrich summer recreation programs serving the children of Humboldt County. So if anyone wants to go and see what that's about, they've got applications and they're going to be available through February 2015. And again, you can go to hafoundation.org. That's hafoundation.org. And then, Haywood, there's grants here. There are the apartheid and photography grants. And it says here that South Africa's post-apartheid youth, 20 years after the beginning of the multiracial democracy in South Africa, it says the Born Frees, the first generation of the so-called Rainbow Nation. So they're giving grants for young people. And if you want to see where that is, it's actually through Getty Images. You can go to www.imagery.gettyimages.com. So that's imagery.gettyimages.com, and that's talking about the grants that are available there. One other one, Sony is giving grants in 2015, and it's the Sony World Photography Awards, and it says open to photographers of all ages and skill levels. The awards are welcomed over 70,000 have welcomed over 700,000 entries from more than 230 countries. And so it says join as we seek to identify the champion of the best photography. So again, that's at worldphoto.org. You can go to worldphoto.org, and where it says about, and you can see what's going on with Sony. So those are just a few of the grants. We'll come back and talk about a few more. Tell us some of the wins that have gone on with your kids with your youth photography program.
Excuse me just a second.
Don't make me cough.
I do have a couple of stories that's very positive about the program. The first story, I am working with the Inglewood Pacific Links chapter. I teach a class over at Inglewood High School, inner city. I think Inglewood High School is like maybe 90% black, or maybe, but it's mostly black and
Latino
students. You know, lower income, just tell the truth about it, lower income. Not too many choices. These kids have to fight on the way to school. They fight in school. They fight on the way home from school. And I've been working for the last 5 years over there with a program. And we take 6 students. The highest was 10. And year before last year, we had a mixed class of boys and girls. And what I try to do is I try to take them to places out of the neighborhood so that they can see that there's a world out there for them other than what's just in front of them.
Before you go further, on your website, are there photos of them or that he could possibly bring up that?
There are photos.
So that's what, MPJI?
MPJI.org.
MPJI.org. And that way they can be exposed to some of the wonderful work.
Yes.
Okay, so go ahead.
So we took the students to the botanical gardens down in the Pacific Palisades. And, you know, these are black kids who are used to looking at a certain thing. So I sometimes wonder how they're going to react when they get to a certain place. You know, I take them to a bunch of flowers. We'll see what happens. So we get down there, and they get out, and they get the cameras, and they start shooting. And one of the things I noticed right off the bat, that they're enjoying themselves somewhat. So I'm working with a couple of students, and I look across this big flower garden that they have. It's actually a rose garden with a little vestibule sitting in the middle of it. And I see one of the students, and she walks to it with the phone in her hand, and she sits down. Now, she looks like she's disturbed, so my mind goes to, did she get a phone call or a text, or is she into it with somebody? But I didn't have time to go talk to her because I was working with some other students. I looked up, and I saw one of the chaperones go and speak to her, and like, okay, she's not by herself. So about 30 minutes later, when we was all coming back toward the front, I asked the chaperone what was the problem with the student. And she said, you know, I thought there was something wrong with her too. And so I went over and I asked her. And she said there wasn't anything wrong. She just wasn't used to this type of tranquility in her life. And it was getting to her. And she just had to sit down and enjoy
and just absorb it
for a moment or two or three. And that was the same thing with all the rest of them. You could see a difference in their personalities when they were out there. And so then I realized that there was an equestrian center across the street from the botanical gardens. And I knew that most of them had never seen a horse in person. So I said, I tell you what, we're going to do 2 for 1 today. We're going to go across the street to the equestrian center. And so we go across the street, and we got out the car, and I said, y'all stay right here for a second, because I didn't want all those white folks to see all these little black people, kids, coming out of these cars like, what, the hood has come to Palos Verdes? What they doing? They come to take over? So I said, wait right here for a minute. So I went over to a couple of people who had horses. I said, look, I'm with a bunch of students from Inglewood High School. They're not used to this type of thing. And I wanted to bring them over here so that they could see the horses and be around the horses and take photos of them.
And I saw some of those photos, which are absolutely phenomenal.
And so everybody looked at me and said, bring them on, bring them on. And I took them over there, and everybody was so receptive to them. They talked to them. They told them about the horses. They took pictures. This one gentleman was like, what are y'all doing? And I told him what we were doing. And he said, hold on just a moment. I got some llamas. Let me let the llamas out.
I did see those pictures.
Yes, and he let the llamas out and let them take pictures, and he talked to them, and they told him about some more equestrian events taking places at different places. And we went back, and they were changed. It changed them quite a bit. And my next story was last year, they decided that because I had such a positive impact on the young men, that they were going to give me a class with all young men. So I had 10 young men last year.
Now, is that when I went up and saw at the African Museum those photos, or was that group? Or?
That was the group before then.
Oh, okay.
So they gave me 10 young men that were junior and seniors, and they had different things on their mind. None of them ever came. All of them never came to class together. But the good thing is they got into it. None of them had. Quite a few of them had never picked up a camera before, and they got into doing what we were doing. Like I said, I took them to different places. I took them to the marina. The first trip was to the marina, and I found out when the trip was over, I had 6 boys, and none of them had ever been to the marina. And that's like 9 miles within where they live, and my mouth dropped. And then, but the greatest one was when we took them to the observatory, Griffith Observatory.
Uh-huh.
It was on a Saturday evening, and the Great Spirit God worked it out because all week long it had been foggy out there, and I'm like, I'm taking these young men up here, and it's going to be foggy. We won't get the shot that I want them to get because I wanted them to see the Los Angeles Basin.
Right. From a way that
How
they had
beautiful
never
it-
seen.
yes. And I'm like, oh, it's foggy. Oh, Lord. So we're driving up, and all of a sudden, a miracle happened on that Friday that turned into Saturday.
Ah.
The wind blew out all the fog in the basin.
Wow.
That Saturday, we drive up to the observatory. We get up there, they get out, they start taking photos, and I had a big surprise for them. There is a mountain behind the observatory, higher up.
Uh-huh.
And I looked at them, and I said, y'all see that mountain? We're going up to the top of that mountain. And all of them looked at me and some almost simultaneously said, oh, no, we're not. We're not walking up there. I got on my new tennis shoes.
Isn't that something how these kids don't want to get tennis shoes dirty?
I just got my new tennis shoes. I'm not walking in no dirt. I'm not going up there. And I'm looking at them, and they're talking about, I didn't come up here to walk up on no mountain. And I just kind of looked at them, and I looked at their teacher, and I picked up the tripod. I throwed it on my shoulder. I went,
And you said,
let's
Yeah.
go. And the teacher and me started singing, we're off to see the wizard, wonderful Wizard of
and they
Oz.
end up having an amazing time.
Oh, you know, I was singing lions, tigers, and bears.
Yeah.
'cause it-
Oh, my.
Yeah, it was getting dark, so we had to go up through this tree line, and it's dirt road, and we had to climb up, up, and up, and up. And they're behind me, and they're fussing because I got 50 yards in front of them.
Uh-huh.
They're fussing like, it's getting cold out here. And are we
Some
there
of them
yet?
probably scared.
Yeah, and they're like little kids in the car. Are we there yet? No, we're not there yet. Just keep walking. Keep walking. Because I knew we were going to come to a point that we were going to be above the tree line. And when we were above the tree line, you were going to be able to look back and see the Los Angeles Basin, as well as see the Griffith Observatory with the lights going down. With the sun going down, rather. So we kept walking, and out of my peripheral vision, I saw that we had got to that point. And I walked a little further, and I stopped. I said, fellas, what? I said, look over your left shoulder
Turn
and tell
around.
me what you see. And I heard, ooh.
And they'll never forget it.
Ah.
They
I
will
said,
never
okay.
forget it.
Right. I said, okay, let's go another 50 yards. So we went another 50 yards.
They didn't fuss then, did they?
No. And we set the cameras up, and they started taking their shots. But just before we started, I looked at them, and I said, what do you think about it now? Was it a challenge? Yes, Mr. Haywood, it was a challenge. But it's cool. We like it. It's pretty. And I did something else because I'm always trying to teach them and preach to them a certain thing. I said, I want all of y'all to look out at that Los Angeles Basin and how beautiful it is. That belongs to you. Your ancestors worked where everything that you see, you can
Yeah.
enjoy and you can have if you're willing to work hard. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but you can have it if you're willing to work hard. It belongs to you. Don't ever let anybody convince you. Don't ever let anybody convince you that anything that is of good you cannot
But
have.
you can't have it.
Because
Yes.
the Great Spirit God would not have put it on your heart
Right.
if he didn't want you to have it and you couldn't have it. That's what needs to be understood. Don't pay no attention to what people say about it. The Great Spirit God put that good thing on your heart that you desire to have. You
Right.
can have it. He
Right.
didn't say it was going to be easy because it's
Like
the
when you
bigger
were
it
that
is-
little kid back home in Kentucky
Yeah.
saying you were going to be in Hollywood.
Yes, the bigger it is, the more work. And when I got into a business, one of the guys said, hey, would you know what? He said, it's going to be hard for you. He said, all I want to do is drive the trucks on the set.
Excuse me.
And it was difficult for me to get there. But you want to be a star. It's going to be a long, hard journey, but you can make it. You can make it. It's there for you. It'd just be difficult. So I talked to them. They took the images. And one of the ones the one that said he wasn't going that went, I got a phone call from the teacher on Monday. She said, hey, he came back to class and did something he never does. He went up in front of the class and said, can I talk to him? And he talked to him for 10 minutes about how they went up into the hill.
Wow.
And took the photos. And he was so
Wow.
proud. And they captured those young men. I took them to the botanical garden. Like I said, bunch of macho men in the botanical gardens with flowers to see how they would react. They got out there. They captured the images. We went to
And
the zoo.
loved it.
And yes, and captured
saw
the
the zoo
images.
photos,
And
yeah.
they loved it.
Gosh.
And like I said, several of them had never picked up a camera before. And when I finally blew up the photos for the show, they looked at them and they was amazed that they had done the work. They just stood up there like,
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's just like when I saw your photos, it was so vivid also just seeing the stripes on the zebras. I mean, it's like the white was just popping off those pages. And I was just so, when you told me that those were pictures also taken by your kids, I mean, I was just kind of going through and I was amazed. I was amazed.
it
So,
changes them. It changes them.
yeah. Oh, I don't have my, oh. Caller, are you there? Hi, caller, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Good, good, good. Do you have a question for Haywood?
I actually just wanted to make a comment and tell him that I really applaud his accomplishments, and to continue to do what he's doing, we need more black men doing what he's doing in the community. He's making a difference and continue to do it. I applaud him.
Well, good, good, good. I applaud him too.
Thank you. Thank you
you
so
so
much.
much.
And we're working on it. Hopefully the book, an exhibit, everything is going to go as to planned, and we're going to get in a position.
It will go.
It will go as planned, and we're going to get in a position where we can bring more black men in to work with our young men and women, because I am who I am because a lot of black men and some white men served as a village for me to help me, and that has made a difference in my life, and that's one of the reasons why I want to make a difference in others' lives, and so I
Good.
thank you so much.
Good.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you so
hey,
much.
I'm
Don't hang up.
fighting that fight with you.
Yeah, don't hang up because we want to get your information.
Okay.
Okay. So now, for anyone else, if you would like to call in, we've just got a couple of minutes. If you want to take a chance to get the book which is I Want to Tell You, but it is a collector's item because it is signed by world-renowned photographer Haywood Galbraith, because this is his photo on the back cover. You can call 965, that's 323-965-1600, 323-965-1600. Haywood, any last thoughts before we close out the show?
Yes, I want to talk about something that you hit on earlier about the pain that the families went through.
Uh-huh.
The families went through pain, but for the past 20 years, Black America has gone through pain also.
Yes.
Because of that verdict.
Ah.
There were a lot of things that happened to Black Americans because of that not guilty verdict. And race, the verdict was split along racial lines of whether he was guilty or not. Mm-hmm. And what I want to do with my book and traveling and speaking about it is set the record straight. It's not about advocating that O.J. Simpson was guilty. I think that once I set the record straight and you see what you were not permitted to see, you will change your mind about a lot of things. It's also about my story, about my journey from the basement of a hospital in Mayfield, Kentucky, because little black babies couldn't be born upstairs. They had to be born in the basement. And when my family came to pick my mama and me up, they had to pick us up at the kitchen. We had to come out the back door of the kitchen because
Haywood.
we couldn't come out the front door. It's about that I believed in the power of the Great Spirit God, which is what my family instilled in me, to believe in the Creator. And that if I believed in Him and had the faith and worked for my goals and dreams, they would come true. I was the only photojournalist in the world to be in the largest criminal court case in the history of America every day. My story about that is a story about faith and about the ability of God to make the impossible possible. And I say to everybody that's listening, your life is a story in itself. Mm-hmm. I am a firm believer that if you will not hitch your wagon to the stars, but hitch your wagon to the one that made the stars, the Great Spirit God.
All right, now go on and talk.
That your life will be
better.
better across the board. As a matter of fact, in this great nation of ours, The problem we have is that we've turned to the way of man.
Yeah.
As opposed to the way of the Great Spirit God. And people been like, why you keep saying the Great Spirit God? Because I'm playing on my Native American heritage. A people that when the Europeans came here, they said that people was savages. But that people, the Native American people, the indigenous people, are closer to the Great Spirit God than the people that came here that said they came here for religious freedoms.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Haywood, we're getting close to the hour. I want to make sure that people can stay up on what you're doing, can hear more of your ministry, because that's truly what it is. Again, how do they reach you?
They can reach me at the hgstory.org. They can also come and follow me on Facebook, Haywood Golden Eagle Galbraith. I tell you, it's a journey in itself.
Okay. Well, Haywood, again, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for being on. Before we go, if you would like to receive more grant information that we send out weekly, you can go to my website at kifoundation.org. That's kifoundation.org. Also, my company is celebrating 20 years of making a difference in Los Angeles and abroad. And so we're having a huge red carpet event on November 7th. We'd love for many of you to join us. Go to our website at kifoundation.org and click on 20-year gala. So you can go there, click on the gala, join us, and you can also click on free grant info and make sure that you stay connected. Again, Haywood, I want to thank you for coming on. We may have to do a part 3 one day, or I have you come back. You know, again, you're going to preach one day. I can just feel it. I can feel it because you are an anointed man. And I want to thank you for being my friend and colleague. I want to thank all of you for being with us with Drive Time with Sharita J. Stay blessed, and we will see you next week.
All right. You want to do it again? You want to do it again, huh? Yeah, let's go on back. Gotta take you high. Hit it. Oh, how you feel, brother? Feeling good. You feel good? Feeling good. Play so much bone, brother. How you feel, man? I feel all right. I call your name. I don't want no people to know you're in here. How you feel, fellas? Hey, Jam! Sure getting down. Gotta take you high. Ow! All right. You want to do it again? You want to do it again, huh? Yeah, let's go on back. Gotta take you high.
Power Lunch with Sharita J.
If we could get more people to collaborate with our nonprofits, we could be bringing a lot more programs back to our schools, because there's grants where there's been a music program or an arts program or fine language program cut. There's grants where individuals could bring those programs into the schools and collaborate.
Hit it. Oh, how you feel, brother? Feeling good. You feel good? Feeling good. Play so much bone, brother. How you feel, man? I feel all right. I call your name. I don't want no people to know you're in here. How you feel, fellas? Hey, Jam! Sure getting down. Gotta take you high. Ow! All right. You want to do it again? You want to do it again, huh? Yeah.